So hello. Today we brought you 5 tips on food photography. Food photography is kind of a niche market here in Sri Lanka. Not many people do it, but the people who actually do it very creatively and uniquely. So on the hunt of finding a good food photographer, we found someone very unique and special. That was a Instagrammer who actually posts lots of photos on Instagram, and her pictures spoke to us. They were very unique, color-wise they were very creative, and we decided to bring her onto our show to share her 5 tips with us. So you could take amazing photos for your Instagram, for your little restaurant, your small business or whatever. You could use those little tips to amplify your photograph. So let's invite Sanji Ariyasena to share her 5 tips with us on food photography.
Tip number 1, plan ahead. You need to plan what kind of a food and the kind of a action shot that you're going to have. You need to have the visual image in that. So it could be dusting some ice and sugar onto some desserts, maybe sprinkle some salt into cookies, or maybe pouring some syrup or some honey onto a stack of pancake. So you need to have that idea before you start going. So the next thing is you need to arrange your scene. You need to compose your scene accordingly, so that way you will have a balanced image. So for an example, if you take a stack of pancake, you could always add a glass of milk onto the scene, add some colors onto that, maybe some strawberries or some seasonal fruits, so that way you will have a delicious image. So tip number 2, placing the camera. It is really important that you need to place your camera steady. It's better to have a tripod. I find it really easy to handle the camera with a tripod, so that way you could do multiple things. So you don't have to worry about the camera. You just set up your camera and you could do the pouring shots or dusting something, or you could arrange your setup accordingly, and that way you could have a clean and very sharp image. So tip number 3, lightings. It is really important to have good quality lightings for any photography field. So you could have either natural light or artificial light in food photography. So normally in food photography, you don't have to use so many lights coming from so many sides. You just have to use one light source. It should come from sides. So if you're using one light source, if it is come from one side, if you feel like you need to have more light in your image, so you could always manipulate that light by adding a reflector or maybe a white card, and that way you can bounce back the whole light into the scene. And the next thing you want to know is you need to diffuse your light for food photography. It should be action shot or maybe just a photo. You need to diffuse the light always. So in that case, you can add a diffuser to the light, so you will get a soft light and you will have balanced highlights and shadows in your image. So my tip number 4 is camera settings. Ideally, you need to adjust your camera to manual mode, so that way you could control your shutter speed, ISO and aperture. So for action shots, so first thing you need to do is to increase your shutter speed, so that way you can capture the moment real fast. And the second thing is the ISO. ISO could go up to 200 or above, because that gives really good exposure in action shots. Increase your aperture could give you a depth of field into your image. If you feel like you need to have more detailed pouring shot, maybe dusting shot in your image, so you could go to a smaller f-stop in aperture. So my tip number 5 is, that is the last tip, it's continuous shooting. So adjust your camera to continuous shooting with self timer, so that way you won't miss any beautiful and very detailed shots along the way.
So that is it for our 5 tips in today's episode, and thank you very much, Sanji, for sharing your tips with us today. Until I see you back again with 5 more awesome tips, this is me, Nolene, signing off from 5 Tips with
Nolene.
That's right.